there was no one to judge you, would you make different choices? Why make choices in your life based on what everyone else thinks is best for you? What about trusting your intuition and just going with what you think? Everyone has the power to make inspired choices. Get ready to listen, share, and experience the creativity that is you. Now, here's the host of Inspired Choices, intuitive life coach, Christine McIver.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm your host, Christine McIver. I'm so glad you're with us here today. We are going to have a wonderful show. We have a special guest on the show today, Chris Young, or better known as Chris A. Young. And we're going to be talking with Chris and talking about what will your legacy be. Before we get started in that, I just want to talk a little bit about what's going on in the world today. I'm calling from Guelph, Ontario, Canada. It's a beautiful sunny day here. Chris is from Wasaga Beach, which is a beautiful place in Ontario. What's it like there for you today, Chris?
It is absolutely beautiful and sunny right now. It started off with some rain this morning, but now the sun is shining, the skies are blue, and it is beautiful.
Awesome. Wow. And here we are sitting inside. We got to change that quite quickly, eh, Chris?
Absolutely.
Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to be talking with Chris, and he's going to be teaching us about what we can leave our legacy to be and what our reputation how it will precede us, and how we're going to have other people see us. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Chris right now. Chris Young helps clients build customer relations that stand the test of time amidst turbulent economies, fierce competition, and limited finances. Chris's insight paves the way for small business owners to establish a unique brand and develop a positive and lasting client rapport. Chris roadmaps the best strategies for owners to engage and turn customers into referral-generating brand evangelists using social media and the power of being a connector and builder of community, all while generating real-world ROI. That's a fabulous bio, Chris.
You like that? I paid big money for that.
Did you?
No, actually, I didn't, but I did have a friend of mine who does professional resume and bio writing.
Yes.
And because I'm such a good person, she said, Chris, I would like to do this for you.
Nice. We'll have to give her a shout out for sure. So today, Chris, you're going to be teaching us about leaving our legacy. And you and I actually just met recently at the Small Business Community Network Marketplace event here in Kitchener. And I found you quite intriguing as you were talking. And I really love the part where you ask us to think about 3 words you want people to use to describe us. And I'm very excited to have you with me today and to share with us what exactly you mean by all of this. So I'd love for you to just start and tell us a little bit more about you, where you were raised and where you're at today.
Right, absolutely. And yes, we did just meet, and the conversation was wonderful. And I always tell people that, as a professional speaker, most of my best talks take place off stage. And I find, when I'm connecting one-on-one with people is where the magic really happens. And I was glad to connect with you and many others after that conference. So anyways, a little bit about me. I was born in and raised in a town called Chatham, Ontario, which is southern Ontario. It's a town that's quite, right now, it's very, I almost want to use the word destitute. It's in rough shape. It's been a town that's really been struggling. It's a blue-collar town that's been clinging desperately to its identity for years and has subsequently lost all its identity as it's lost all its industry. So I grew up in a very poor town, in a very poor household, a single parent household. My father left when I was 5. So, I grew up very turbulent. We moved probably, I actually did the calculation, the math, and by the time I was 15 years old, I had lived in 20 different houses.
Ooh.
Yeah, we moved a lot.
Wow.
So I mean, there was really not much stability. By the time I was 14 and going into high school, I was a homeless teen battling drug and alcohol addiction. I just didn't get off to a great start, and and I like to place some of the blame on me because I refused to take accountability for a lot of the stuff that was happening in my life. And I know at a young age, it wasn't all my fault, but I failed to realize that it was up to me to decide which direction I was going to take. And I sort of let the world dictate that I was going to fall into despair instead of, excelling and coming out a better human. And so it took me a long time to realize that. And it wasn't until I started having kids of my own and I really made amends with my family. It was probably in my early 20s. I think I was 22. When I had a very good talk with my father, and we discussed a whole lot about life choices. And, I really aired a lot of my grievances, and he actually opened up and admitted that he made a lot of mistakes. And that really opened up for me to say, okay, now I can kind of move forward and be the person I want to be, not the person everybody expects me to be.
That's excellent. That, a lot of people hold back those feelings because their ego gets in the way and they just let resentment lead them. What was the pivotal thing for you to have you take that shift and take that accountability? Was it having the children, or was it prior to that when you were kind of getting on your feet in your life?
You know what? I think a lot of it was when I was coming out of my teen years, into 17, 18, 19, and I understand that, when I was, 14 and 15 years old, I had lived with a friend whose father was a bootlegger. So at 15, I was selling illegal bootlegged alcohol and cigarettes until his dad kicked us out because he had this huge temper, and we moved out on our own. I was 15, 16 at the time. My friend was 17, and we had another friend moved in with us that was 17 as well. So we got our own house in a really bad area of town because that's where we could afford to live. And in order to support ourselves and pay our rent and everything, we dealt drugs. So I went from being a bootlegger to a drug dealer in my teens. And, it was, a lot of it was running with the wrong crowd. And, it wasn't until I started realizing, one day that I was saying to myself, I can't live like this anymore. Like, I'm tired of this. We're, every day we're watching for the cops and we're, it's such a struggle. And I thought, but this is what everybody kind of expects me to do, right? Everybody kind of expects me to be a failure in life, right? I've kind of been set up for that, and I've accepted that as my role. So I was like, I'd like to just, turn to all these people at some point in my life and say, you know what? You were all wrong. So I said, you know what? That's it. I moved back in with my mother, who had really stabilized herself. And, and I went back to school. And so I kind of, at 17, I started kind of getting myself, back together, back on the right path. But I don't think it was really until, my daughter was born, and I was a young parent. I was just 20 when she was born. But I think that's when it really hit that I had to change things. And it wasn't about me anymore.
It's
bigger than me.
Right. I often tell my clients that 80% of people change out of pain. Only 20% of people change out of pleasure. We often have to hit that bottom where we're just sick and tired of being sick and tired of before we actually begin to make better choices for ourselves.
You know what? And this is what I always say. Because we all talk about hitting bottom, and I say there's scraping the bottom, but then there's lifting up the barrel to see what's underneath. That's where I was.
Right.
There's the bottom of the barrel, but then there's what's under the barrel. That's kind of where I hit. And when I really kind of decided to make that change and go up instead of down, that was a pretty big moment. And it was, I don't think there's any real defining moment, but I recall sitting there one day and just saying, I can't live like this anymore.
Right. Well, that's fantastic. I'm so glad that you were able to reach down inside of yourself and choose something better and really to find how to move forward, to find, to be in your joy. And certainly when you and I first met, you perceive as a very professional person, and we never know where someone's come from. We never know the challenges that anybody's been through. But what is really awesome is when we meet people like yourself and we hear their story and their journey, and we see where they are today, it gives us hope. And that's what I hope that some of our listeners are hearing today, and they're receiving some hope from what you're going to share with us, Chris.
Right.
So we're going to be going to break shortly, but before we do, Chris, what do you do for a living today? Can you just give us a quick synopsis of what you're doing now?
I work with small businesses and entrepreneurs. I do small business and social media strategies. I do have a bit of a marketing background, so what I try and do is I try and help businesses succeed where they otherwise may fail. I'm just trying to prevent, people from failing wherever possible, be it in business or in life. It's just about finding new ways for people to succeed, seeing things with a different set of eyes, a different perspective. That's kind of where I come in and say, let's change this, let's change that, and let's go.
Excellent. So we're going to be taking calls for Chris or for myself or for the both of us when we come back from break. And I'm going to be doing the same promotion I had last week. So for our first caller that calls in and asks either Chris or I or both of us a question, you're going to be receiving a 30-minute free life coaching session. Now, Chris, you can't hang up and call back in, okay?
All right. I'll call from my cell phone.
Okay, that's good. So for the first caller that calls in, you're going to get a free 30-minute coaching session. As well, if you'd like to connect with Chris, his website is www.b2, the number 2, cy.com. And if you'd like to connect with myself, it's inspiredchoices.ca. So get your questions ready. When we come back from break, we're going to take your calls and we're going to get to know a little bit more of what Chris is going to share with us today. So hang on the line, everybody, and Chris will be right back with you. Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Christine McIver, and we are speaking with Chris Young. He's our guest today, and he's going to be talking to us about what's your legacy going to be that you're going to leave when you depart this body in this time. So, Chris, why don't we get right back at it, and why don't you tell us about this whole idea and give everybody a little bit more about those 3 words that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not even about the legacy you're going to leave when you're gone. It's about the legacy you're leaving right now. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have to wait until we're dead for our legacy. We're creating it now. So let's live our legacy.
Okay.
Before we leave our legacy.
Right. Okay. Makes sense. Right? So how do you do that?
What I like to do is I like to take people and we begin with the end in mind, which was, I'll admit that I kind of stole that from Stephen Covey. When I read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, it really hit me that you write your own eulogy. What would you like people to say? And, to sort of break that down and make it even simpler, I like to say, choose 3 words that you would like people to use to describe you when you're not there, when talking about you. So, once you choose those 3 words, then you can start living those 3 words to make it happen. For me, one of my words is helpful. All right. I love it when people say, Chris, you're so helpful, and so I set out to consciously be helpful, because it helps me to sort of align where I am now with the legacy I want to leave, the person I am with the person people are talking about.
Okay.
So, it really helps with the alignment. Like we know where we're going to go, and then we can sort of chart our path to get there.
Okay. So one of the first things did you do is figure out where you wanted to get to?
You know what? I'm going back and reverse engineering this myself, because when I did the whole 3 words thing, it wasn't a conscious decision for me. It was when I asked my community, I said, give me 3 words to describe me. What would you use? And the 3 words that came up most were helpful, honest, and humble. And I thought, if I could go back and pick 3 words, I'm not so sure I could pick better words than that. And so it really got me thinking. I was like, now, if these are the words people use to describe me, what if I consciously set out to engineer my legacy, right? So if people were to say, so if I said, I want to be known for these three things, this is the legacy I want to leave, this is the legacy I want to live, what would they be? And then I can go back and sort of reverse engineer it and say, well, if I want to be known, if one of my words is helpful, well, then obviously I have to go and help people. Mm-hmm. Right? So now I'm living my legacy now.
Okay. So it really resonated with you when people were giving you those back.
It did. I was really floored by it. I mean, I guess we live in a world where we're so surprised when people say nice things, which is kind of a shame, right? When people do good things or say nice things, we tend to look for ulterior motives sometimes, and that's really scary that happens. Mm-hmm. But I was the same. I was really floored by it. I was taken aback. I said, wow, like, I can't believe people would use these words to describe me. So I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to take these three words and I'm going to run with them. Those are the legacy. That's the legacy I want to live of being this person. So now I can make sure that I make all the right choices to keep me going towards those words.
That's excellent. Okay, we have a caller on the line. Roxanne, are you there with us, Roxanne? Oh, that's too bad. Okay, we dropped Roxanne. I guess she had to get back to work. Maybe she'll call back in. I actually have an email from another listener. Her name is Karen, and here's Karen's question. This is interesting, Chris. Do you think 80% of the population have the same legacy as their parents? If so, that would mean that we are all holding too many belief systems. We should be going deep into our authentic self and work towards our own unique legacy. What do you think about that, Chris?
You know what? I think we need to leave our own legacy. I understand we're going to leave our family legacy through our lineage, and that's not something we can help. That's genetics. That's going to happen anyways. But I think we do. We need to, break the paradigms that were handed down from our parents. Mm-hmm. And most of us, especially in my generation, we were given the paradigm of the 40-40 plan, for example, where you're going to work 40 hours a week for 40 years, for the same company, and we all know that doesn't happen anymore. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right? We don't attach ourselves to a company and work there for 40 years anymore. The average person has 12 jobs by the time they're 38 now. Right? This is a paradigm that's breaking.
12 jobs by the time they're 38.
12 different employers by the time they're 38.
Wow. Well, you're right. I mean, life has changed on Earth so much so that we're not going to have the same legacy as our parents. And yet, I think, part of what Karen is alluding to is something that I challenge a lot of my clients with as well, is you don't have to be the same as your parents. You can be your unique self and decide what is good for you and what makes you happy. And you don't have to be locked into that.
No, and that's exactly where I'm going with this is we have to start by breaking the paradigms that our parents have set. Mm-hmm. And there's some that we're going to keep, but there's a lot that we're going to break, and we're going to say, you know what, this is not for me. And I know that my parents say, I need to go to school, I need to get my education, go to college, get a job, follow the stages. And, a lot of us, the newer generations, and I think actually not even just that, I think as a whole, we're collectively awakening to this idea that there is more. Mm-hmm. We need to find our passions and live with purpose more than just do what's set out for us. We're deciding now that it's not about living a cookie cutter life. Mm-hmm. Now we're deciding that we want to do something else, and we're now saying that it's okay to do what we want to do as opposed to just fall in line. And I think we have to decide what our legacy is going to be. Mm-hmm. First, and then again, we can live our legacy before we leave our legacy. So we have to make sure we know where we're going and what we want to accomplish, and then we can go and do that.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does. I mean, even if you don't know exactly what it is that you want, one of the big things that I think is important is that we keep looking. What makes me happy? What intrigues me? What is it that person's doing? What is it that other person's doing? Or just even watching different shows on TV and saying, well, that looks like a really cool thing, what they're talking about, what they're, educating us on. Maybe that's something I would be interested in, because we don't always know what it is that we want to be doing. But we can find it just by following what makes us happy. And I think that's extremely important to pay attention to that. Here's another question. Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Next question.
The next question is from Roxanne, and she says, my partner and I are making some major decisions and transitions in our lives and don't want to leave our families out of the loop. They don't seem to be interested until it's a convenient time for them. Do you have any tips on bringing up a difficult conversation when there is a limited amount of face time? You go ahead, Chris. You can respond to that.
I'm going to say that as harsh as this sounds, sometimes, you know what, you need to just look your family in the face and say, this is for us, this is right for us, this is the decision we're making. So we're asking you to either support us through this decision or just don't say anything at all, right? Because, and it's hard, but here's the thing. Your family, what they want from you is they want you to be safe. Right? So they want you to take all the safe road, no risk. They don't want you to do anything that's sort of out of line or out of the ordinary. So they're only looking out for your best interest. And I think what happens, and this is family, friends, but family mostly, is as you sort of take a risk and leave the ordinary and do something different, I think what happens is a lot of family members are afraid that as you grow, you're going to kind of grow away from them. Mm-hmm. So you either need to go at it and say, look, here's the thing, you either support us or you stop with the negative talk, or you go at it and say, look, we're going to change things, but we're not changing to leave you. We want you to be part of our life. So, but we would like you to come along. We would like you to be supportive too. So here's the thing. You're welcome to come with the changes. You're welcome to, if you're going to be supportive, but if you're not going to be supportive, then, just let us go, keep your negative talk to yourself. And when we get to where we're going, we'll touch base and say, now are you interested? And I think you'll find that many of them, once they see that, you haven't totally changed as a person, they will come along and then they will go back to support.
Yeah. For me, it's, there's never a convenient time, because it sounds to me, Roxanne, like you've got some fear of rejection from them, or you're afraid that you're going to hurt their feelings. And sometimes it's looking them square in the eye, as Chris said, and saying, we need to have this conversation, or I want you to know, I want you to understand. There's never going to be a perfect time where everybody's going to be joyful about you maybe moving far away or maybe making a major change. It's challenging as parents to see our children going through that. I can tell you, my son told me about 2 months ago, he says, oh, by the way, I'm moving to England. And I said, pardon? And honestly, at first, I was not very happy. But I stepped back from it and I thought, you know what? I want him to do what makes him happy. I always have said that, and I will always say that. We should all be doing what makes us happy. So I tried to look at it in a different way, and I thought, well, I've always wanted to do more traveling, so I guess I'm going to be doing more traveling. Give them an opportunity to absorb it and allow them to make their decisions, but understand that it is your decision about your life. And, just sometimes it's just ripping that Band-Aid and letting that conversation begin. And, speak from where, I like what you said, Chris, just speak from where your heart is and talk about, we want you in our lives. And let them know. Don't come at it confrontationally. Just come forward and start the conversation, whether it's convenient or not. Just start having it. It'll magically open up to the conversation anyways. So, go ahead.
Right, and you know what? And I can say this as someone who held a grudge with my father for 20 years, and then had a really good conversation about it 20 years later. Amends can be made. Right. Yeah. So sometimes there's going to be a rift and sometimes things will happen. But you know what? If you go and you work at it, and sometimes time will just make everything better. And we have to be conscious of the time we have as things change. Don't get me wrong there. But the fact is sometimes you can take that little bit of time and that'll make things, a little bit of time to settle and to absorb, like you said, and then that'll make it easier to take.
Right, exactly. So we're going to take some calls when we're back after the commercial, and we're going to talk to Chris a little bit more about his life and where he's at right now and how he's going to help us learn to leave our legacy as well. So please call in or email in, and remember you can contact Chris on Facebook. He's on Facebook as Chris A. Young Enterprise. Is that correct, Chris?
That's me.
Or b2cy.com. And as well, myself, inspiredchoices.ca, or Facebook, Inspired Choices Inc. So stay tuned, and we'll be back shortly. Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Christine McIver from inspiredchoices.ca, and we are speaking with Chris A. Young. Chris, where did the A come from?
It's funny because my name, Chris Young, is a very, very common name. There's about 5 gazillion of us in the world. And so when I first signed up for Facebook, and I was one of the early adopters to Facebook, I had signed up as Chris Young, and then all of a sudden these other Chris Youngs popped up. So my middle name is Alan, so I put Chris A. Young, as in my middle initial A, and that narrowed it down to there was about 30 of us. And then one day, it was, I think about 4 years ago now, it was on Canada Day, and I'm a very patriotic Canadian, so I changed it to Chris A, as in, well,
right.
I'm Canadian A. And that day I had about 100 people send me a message and say, that is so awesome. Like, you got to keep that. And so I did. I kept it, and I actually put it on a business card. And I found every networking event I went to, everything, I would hand the business card, and right away people would look at it and they go, what's that A for? It was instant icebreaker. You know what I mean? And it was instantly a way for me to tell the story and to build rapport and conversation with people. And I just found it worked so well as a conversation starter.
Excellent.
That I had to keep it.
Yeah.
So, and now it's really just become part of my identity.
That's part of who you are. So it's your identity and your legacy, right?
It's true. And I talk to people all over the world, and they go, hey, it's Chris, eh? And I'm like, yes, it's Chris, eh? You know, and it's funny. It's because, especially my American friends, they love to jump on that because they understand it.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of American listeners on the line today, or they'll be listening to the rebroadcast later, and they'll appreciate that. They'll have a good laugh about that, because that's definitely one of our legacies in Canada, isn't it?
It absolutely is.
So, Chris, tell me, what inspires you?
You know, honestly, everything inspires me. You know, inspiration is everywhere. It's just a matter of training ourselves to look for it. But I think the biggest thing that inspires me has to be my kids. I mean, I have 4 kids, and they range from 6 to 16. So I see so many different facets of where they are, and sort of as they grow, I see a lot of my childhood. Mm-hmm. And I see the markers and the milestones, and it brings me back to where I was at that point. And you know, it's really surreal. It's almost like a chance to really relive your own life, watching them grow. So you think, man, I remember when I was 6 and I used to do this and I used to love this, and this was my favorite TV show, and this was my best friend. And then I remember when I was 12 doing this, and you know, and they have all their firsts, you know, their first time they ride a bike, and their first time, you know, on a Ferris wheel, and the first time, you know, everything. It's so many firsts, and you just think, I remember my first time, and you're like, so I'm inspired to really to make their lives so much better, and to see them really, really enjoy, and especially, I mean, and I'm not going to say that I had the worst upbringing ever, because it wasn't that bad. I mean, as bad as I could make it sound. I mean, I had some good friends. You know, I had my brother and my sister with me. You know, my brother and I, we were really close. We hung out a lot. But you know, it wasn't that bad. And I managed to find a lot of the good in it. But I see my kids and I think, you know, I still want them to have, you know, everything I didn't, but with the lessons. I don't want to spoil them. I want them to learn the lessons, and I want them to appreciate the things they have. But at the same time, I want them to have a little bit better than I am, so it inspires me. Right. You know, to provide that for them. Right.
What inspires you about social media?
You know, it's the relationships you can build, the community you can build. You can surround yourself with supportive people.
Mm-hmm.
You can pick and choose who to surround yourself with. And I always teach, in all my talks, I talk about building your relationships with purpose. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't do. They just let everybody in, and they're not selective, and then they wonder why they surround themselves with the wrong people.
Mm.
We're only as strong as our support system. And whether you like it or not, we all have a support system. Sometimes we are our own support system, and I don't recommend that at all, because we'll let ourselves down, and we'll support ourselves only to the level we need to be supported, right? We need people that are always surround ourselves with people that are bringing us up, mm-hmm. instead of tearing us down. So it's important that when you reach out on social media, you can really pick and choose the right kind of people.
Right.
And you still need honest people. You still need, you can't have everybody say rah rah and be on your back, or have your back and be supportive and everything when you're doing all the wrong things. Mm-hmm. You need people that'll be honest with you and say, look, that's not the right thing. This is what you need to be doing. But then when you get on the right course, they're the ones that are saying, like, bravo, that's perfect. Like, let's keep that going. And they're the people, when you get down, they say, you know what, don't get down on yourself. Remember when you succeeded at this. Remember when you did this. That was awesome. Okay, go do that again.
Right. So surround yourself with people that are going to be supportive, but also be truthful and tell you when you've gone off the rails.
Right. You need... we're all in this together, in our lives, and there's going to be a time where you wander off the path, and it's nice to have a sign there, there are the right people there to say, hey, look, you might want to get back on the path again,
okay.
Right? They're not doing it to make you feel bad that you went off the path. They're doing it to make you feel good about getting back on the right path.
Right. And I think that's important. As a life coach, I'm often, sharing with people, they want to know my professional opinion, and they're open to receiving it. When they come into the relationship, into the life coaching relationship, they know that and my clients will tell you, I shoot from the hip. I tell it like it is, but it's always wrapped up with the intention to support and care. And I think when we define our relationship with people and we understand the type of individuals that they are, regardless of what they're saying, you'll receive it in a different way when you clearly define what that relationship is going to look like up front. And it's being brave enough to also say to them, look, this works for me or this doesn't work for me. Being open and honest and sharing that way, whether we're online or we're offline, whether it's a personal relationship or a business relationship, I think is healthy. Having those courageous conversations, even like Roxanne was talking about. I talk about courageous conversations all the time, and I think that people need to be open to having conversations that maybe aren't always comfortable, but in the end can be helpful and help us to move forward.
Right, and sometimes progress is uncomfortable, and that's just the nature of the beast. And I think we have to accept that sometimes we have to be uncomfortable to make progress, mm-hmm. right? And because it's the name of the game is progress, right? If we're not moving ahead, then we're moving backwards. There is no even standing still, mm-hmm. Because everything moves ahead. So if you stand still, you're actually moving backwards. So I think we have to accept some of that uncomfortability. In the name of progress. Mm-hmm. And it's hard because nobody wants to be uncomfortable. Nobody wants their life to change or to be upset in any facet, right? We don't want to, even if it's as much as, moving our dentist appointment for next week, when that routine changes or when something changes, we don't like that. It's human nature, right?
Yes.
But I think we have to learn to embrace and accept being uncomfortable as the only real means of progress.
Right. Absolutely. I have a saying that I say a lot of times, and if my clients are listening, they'll be repeating it in their heads, but it's there's no comfort in the growth zone and there's no growth in the comfort zone. And if you want to be able to grow, it's going to get uncomfortable, and you need to create a new habit and even some new belief systems to help you to move forward into a more comfortable place where you want to go. And I think it comes down to that is, what do you want? What do you want to have in your life? What do you want your life to look like? What do you want to do? What are the kinds of relationships that you do want to have? And I think that's a very important thing also, Chris, that maybe we can talk about after break is, as far as social media goes, and it's exploding. I feel I'm fairly good with social media, but I know I've barely scratched the surface, and I think, every day there's something new to learn and to grow into. But how do we define our relationships online, and how do we clearly have strong relationships out there? What is it that, what are some of your top tips on helping us to really create those relationships online to make them strong and make them empowering for everyone included? Because there's so much going on. Sometimes it can really be very, very distracting and overwhelming for many of us, right? Do you ever find that for yourself?
Absolutely. I suffer from overwhelm all the time. And a lot of that is because of the person I am, because, I enjoy answering people's questions, being helpful, helping people wherever I can. But what I found is that I can spend endless hours just looking to be helpful, and get nothing accomplished for myself. So I really have to dial it back and realize that I'm getting overwhelmed by that environment. Mm-hmm, so I need to dial it in or dial it back and say, okay, Chris, don't forget it's okay every once in a while to focus on you.
Right.
Right? Because if there's no focus on me and what I need to get done, then my family doesn't eat.
Right. And
So
what about the things that you want to accomplish that give you joy?
And I understand that I have to, everything is priorities, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Everything has a rank, everything has a place in the priority chain. But I think we need to establish our priorities. Right. And I think that's where most people fail, is they don't really establish the priority rank. So they just kind of go with the way the day flows.
Right.
Right. And so they get sucked into the very first thing that sucks them in.
Right.
Which a lot of times is social media or email or TV or something of that nature.
Right. It can be just about anything. Okay, well, we're going to go to break, and when we come back, we're going to continue our wonderful conversation with Chris A. Young. And be sure to connect with him or myself via email, through our websites, through Facebook, and we would love to take your questions and, as Chris said, be helpful. So stay tuned, and we will be back shortly. Well, welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Christine McIver, and we are speaking with Chris A. Young. And Chris is on the line today, and he's sharing with us the thoughts about leaving a legacy, or even living the legacy, which I love even more, thinking about where we are today and what we're doing today. And Chris was talking to us about, what are the 3 words? If 3 words were going to be used to describe you, what are the 3 words you would love to hear described about you? So, Chris, tell us a little bit more of that, and tell me one thing. What must you accomplish in your life?
The one thing I must accomplish in my life is I must leave the world better than I found it, or better than I came into it. And I think, it seems like not, rather, I'm searching for a word here. It seems like a goal that's easily attainable. It's not much, but you think that the average lifespan is 72 years, roughly in Canada. And I think, in 72 years, am I going to are my good deeds going to outweigh, the bad that I've done? And I think I got off to a bad start. I caused a lot of trouble as a kid, but I like to think that I'm making up for it now. And I just want to be sure that when I leave, I've done something that has made the world a better place. And I really don't care how insignificant that is to everyone else, or how little it seems. Even if that's, just leaving the legacy of my kids and them being, carrying on my 3 words, and living into sort of that legacy and wanting to live into that legacy. I think, that's something that we all should aspire to do. But it's something I feel I must do. I must make a dent somewhere.
Right. Well, I believe you are making a dent, more than just your children, and I'm sure that they are amazing people, as you are. You make a huge contribution in the world, and I know you and I met under business circumstances, but everything you're sharing today can apply to everyone on a personal level, and I absolutely love that, Chris. So I really am glad that we made this connection and that you're on the show today. one of the things that is very, very important to me is that I inspire people as well. And I think that it doesn't have to take a lot to inspire, or like your word is, to be helpful. It doesn't take a lot for anybody to do that. We can be helpful just by opening a door for someone. We can inspire someone by telling them that they're important in our lives. And I think that, you know what, we enrich our own lives when we reach out and we be of service to other people as well. One of the biggest things, too, that you're talking about, you're often talking about yourself, Chris, and I love that because I think we need to be a little bit more selfish in that we're focusing on what's important to us. Because when we are doing things that fulfill us, we can have a greater impact in the world. We're not coming at the world from a resentful place or an angry place. So this has been absolutely amazing, Chris. If you had any of the listeners on the line right now, what's the one thing you'd like to share about the legacy and what they can do to make a difference in their own lives?
You know what? I think first thing you can do is find your passion. Because when you come from a place of passion and when you're operating from that happy place, you're just gonna do more good in the world. You can't help it. But I think we can't stop with our passion. I think we have to find our passion, but I think we have to live with purpose. I think we have to find a cause bigger than ourselves. Find something, a defining purpose in our life that we sort of aspire to accomplish, or something that drives us to be better people. And when we break it down to the little things, when we're talking about leaving the world a better place, it starts with every interaction. If we just set the goal of every interaction with a human, if we leave every interaction better than we found it, leave every person better than we found them, we really can't help but leave the world a better place.
Right.
Right, and I think it's a habit we need to form. Because we use willpower to force ourselves to do this sometimes. But willpower is unsustainable. Habit is not. So when we form the right habits and get into the right habits, and like I said, the habit of improving every interaction, of improving every person that we come in contact with, leaving them better than we found them, we can't help but do good for the world.
I love it. What you're saying is just set an intention. Set your intention. What do you want?
Right. But we need to know what we're doing. You don't open up the map and say, I'm going on a road trip, and people go, where are you going? I'm down Highway 24. Yeah, but where are you going to end up? At Highway 27. Okay, but where are you going? Well, I don't really know. I'm just driving. No, we say I'm going to California. But first I'm going to go Highway 24, then I'm going to go down Highway 26, then I'm going to go down Highway 28, then I'm going to go down, I-76 or whatever.
Right.
We map it out, but we have to know where we're going before we can map out where we're going.
Yes, absolutely. This is incredible. Chris, I feel like you and I could talk for hours and hours. So we're just going to have to plan another event to get together and sit down. And, the listeners, if they want to connect with you, they can find you on Facebook, Twitter. Where else? Your website? Yeah,
I'm on Twitter more often than anywhere else. Okay. But I do frequent Facebook. If you go to my website, you can find any way to contact me there. Okay, that's awesome. I'm so grateful you were here today with us. And next week, when you call in, you will be learning or listening to one of my teachers and my mentors. Her name is Beth Perozic. She's an intuitive healer. She has been a person I've been connected with for a number of years now. She's an amazing woman. She's going to be sharing with us her gifts, and she's going to be taking lots of calls and answering your questions. So be sure to tune in next week. And be sure to contact Chris A. Young and ask him some questions you weren't able to ask today, especially if you're listening after the program has closed, if you're listening to it in replay. I'm sure, Chris, you'd be open to taking some questions from people? Absolutely. Fantastic. And contact myself as well, where we're going to be doing some more workshops. We're going to be doing some more programs to support you in helping you to grow towards the things that make you happy.
And what's really important is to always remember that you always have a choice. You can always make a better choice for yourself and change your world to what really gives you joy. And remember what Chris was saying today, to find your passion and live with purpose and finding a bigger cause than yourself and leaving the world in a better place. I absolutely love that, Chris. I've written that down. I'm going to put that on a sticky note. It's going on my wall. I'm going to be thinking about that and more and more and more, because I think, we read those things in books all the time, but it's something it's wonderful to remind ourselves about those things. And one of the book I'd like to recommend this week, and you'll find it on my website, is Always Looking Up by Michael J. Fox. He's an inspiring man. He talks about his life and the challenges that he'd had, but how he is moving forward in his life with purpose regardless of all of the challenges. And probably those have been the biggest things that have inspired him to do that. So do check that out. It's a wonderful read. It was one of those reads where I couldn't put it down, and I'm sure you'll find it to be very, very inspiring. So, Chris, again, thank you so much for being on the call today. I truly appreciate it. I'm so glad we've made this connection.
Okay, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So again, contact me, send me your emails, your questions, what you'd like to hear about on the radio show, and we'll do our best to present that to you. Have a wonderful week, and remember to always be choosing things that give you joy. All the best for a fantastic week, my friends. Bye now.